Alright, I'm here with the head out of a 1995 Jeep Cherokee Sport. The engine's a 4.0 liter inline 6, and it's getting replaced because of these cracks in cylinder 2 combustion chamber and cylinder 1 combustion chamber. So looking at these valves, you can see damage clearly here on the number 2 intake valve, but some damage here on the number 1 intake valve isn't as easy to see. But if you take a good look, there's a divot in this valve. That valve should be nice and flat across there. But there's a divot forming here. Again, there's the crack radiating from the exhaust valve seat to the intake valve seat. Again, there's the crack. And there's the divot in that valve. There's erosion on the number 2 intake valve, but the crack in this cylinder is not causing the divot defect. So this is the exhaust valve out of my replacement 7120 4.0 head. And I was actually considering putting it back in, even though it had this pitting. See that? That's where this valve mates up with the exhaust valve seat in the head and makes a seal. I'm going to take a look at this under a microscope and look at these pits. That pitting is in the material where the valve meets the valve seat. So those pits right there are going to allow combustion gases to get past the valve during the combustion stroke. Okay, now that we've looked at that valve under a microscope and took a good look at that pitting, I think we can eliminate any abrasive wear, any frictional wear, any particles that got in the gas path and created that. That is a chemical reaction that caused those pits. So during the combustion process, there's high temperatures, obviously, and there's chemical reactions happening. And in your fuel, you have ethanols and different chemical properties. Now, I'm not a scientist, but that can lead to these pits that we're seeing here. Now, this head has been protected, but it's been sitting a while. And I have the keepers out, and I can't get this valve out of here. See that? It's essentially rusted in place. So I'm going to take this hammer and knock it out. And that, see that little bit of corrosion there? You see that corrosion there? That's the pitting that we are looking at on this exhaust valve. Okay, when I bought this head, I was told that it just came back from the machine shop, and obviously that was not true. There may be some depth measurements you can make on these pits. There's special measuring devices, and a machine shop may be able to afford and have the floor space for one. But out here in the real world, we are just going to replace this valve. We're not going to worry about measuring these pits. Now, I have a whole set of 6 here that I'm going to go through and try to pick out the best one. But a new valve is only $27. If you're going to be this far along in the work, do not put a pitted valve like this back in. Okay, this pitting's not that bad, and perhaps a machine shop did identify pitting and decide that this isn't worth replacing. $27 for a new valve is not a lot of money. But if you're running a machine shop, time is money. Getting a new valve, regrinding everything. So an exhaust valve that's not seating right, that means combustion gases that should be used to drive the piston and create horsepower is going right out the exhaust valve. Your engine's less efficient, your fuel economy's screwed up because you're just wasting that energy in the exhaust. As it's exiting the combustion chamber into the exhaust and it's still perhaps burning, that heat is now going to build up in the exhaust. So your exhaust system's going to be hotter than it's supposed to, and it may not, you know, damage the exhaust pipes and stuff, but components around that are now overheated. And these two exhaust valves are extreme examples about what's going to happen if gases keep leaking past these pits right here. So the decision is up to you. I'm gonna pick the best exhaust valve out of my old head, clean it up, lap it to my new head, and use that. You saw this one we just pushed out. Already those signs of corrosion were happening on this. All right, that's it.